Kyle Whittingham just revealed the keys to how the Utah Utes will topple the UCLA Bruins on Saturday night in Pasadena.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time tuning into our show, make sure you like and subscribe. On today's show, we got a lot to cover. My name is JT Wistrcill, and we are breaking down Kyle Whittingham's comments from his first pregame press conference of a long 2025 season, which is finally here. So excited to have it back. We talk about all of his comments. Also, talk about some ESPN predictions for how the Utah Utes are going to fare in 2025. But first, I want to let you guys know something, a little programming note. We will be going live as soon as the game ends between Utah and UCLA on Saturday. So that's right. If you're looking for a post-game home, as soon as the teams are shaking hands, we're not even waiting for press conferences. We're going live as soon as the game is final. Locked On Utes on YouTube. You can find it here. I'll be here answering your questions, talking about all the biggest moments. So make sure you guys join me live as soon as the game is over on YouTube. But before we get to the game, we got to hear from Kyle Whittingham. So what did Kyle Whittingham say? Well, he talked about some of the keys to victory for Utah. And I thought one of the most interesting things that Kyle talked about during the game is it's honestly a key to victory for every college football team. That's probably more so important in week one than almost any other game in the season. And that's adjustments in game. That adjustments in a game are always crucial to victory. But why do they matter even more week one? Well, it's because Kyle said, you don't really know much about these teams in some ways. Utah, he said, has done a good job, right? Like they've gone back and they've watched what Indiana liked to do on offense last year. They've gone back and watched Nico. They've watched some of what UCLA has done in the past, but it's only so much help, right? Because Eric Bieniemy, the OC last year, he's not there anymore. So Utah's had to watch a little bit of everything. They have a good idea of what Nico, UCLA wants to do on offense, and this UCLA team in general, what they want to do, but you don't know until you get to the ball being snapped. That those are the changes and things that you just can't account for until you've seen them live. He said, it's just one of those things. It's like the unknown. You have to adjust in game, not just in the first half, but honestly, even in the first quarter. That's what Kyle Whittingham said. Like first series right away, coaches and teams are always making adjustments, but those adjustments in that first game can be more drastic than in some ways any other game because you have no idea what a team is going to look like. And I'm really curious to see what this Nico team, this UCLA offense looks like. A lot of unknowns in the pass catching department and offensive line that's trying to come together. Nico's a talented quarterback, but this is his first game with his supporting cast. How does all that work? How does it all look? All questions UCLA has to answer, and we think we know what they're going to do, but if they change it up and make it different, that's where Utah's adjustments are going to be incredibly key in this game. And I do think that Kyle Whittingham is 1,000% right when he said there are just so many unknown and things you have to adjust to, and that's where Utah has a great advantage over a lot of teams they play on their schedule. There's just not many minds like Kyle Whittingham, Morgan Scalley, and I think by the end of the year, we'll be saying that about Jason Beck, too. I think Jason Beck's going to be really good. He's got to prove he can continue to do at the Group of 5 level against P4 competition, but I feel very confident in saying that I do think he's going to be able to do so. So I'm just talking about as well, like just Kyle Whittingham's thoughts during the press conference. He talked about, hey, it's a familiar venue, but the players and everything is completely different, really, than the last time we played them a couple years ago. And that's what happens when new coach in there, Chip Kelly at the time, Sean Foster now in there, too. It's a very different UCLA team, and we saw a lot of players, even on last year's team, as I just mentioned, like they departed. It's a new roster. It's a guy's NFL draft or transferred out. So it's just very different. It's a lot of new, and that's going to make those adjustments so big and so key. And that's why I love that Utah has done so much of their homework, right? Like the Kyle Whittingham even mentions, like they have a new special teams coordinator. Like that's the kind of prep and just that you're putting in and working and trying to figure out, like, okay, are they going to try to hit us with any kind of fake punts? Like what's going to happen? Because it's something as simple as a fake punt can obviously completely change a game. So Utah obviously locked in and getting prepared well with everything that is coming up. And he said, they're excited about the changes that this roster has. Utah's own roster now, 50% turnover. I forgot about that. Just as we've been talking about this in spring ball, right? So like it feels like we know these guys a lot very well, but 50% a new roster. And he said they feel good about it, but you never know for sure until you play someone else. And that's a great point. I mean, there's a reason that every Locked On show, every beat writer is going to tell you how awesome their team is this time of year. Because when you're just going against yourself, it's usually all good things. And then you're going to go against someone else who does something completely different and you've got to adjust to and see how it all works out. And not in the design practice, your quarterback can be hit. And that's the true test for how you're going to be. And that's when you get to know for sure what it's going to look like. He said the guys, though, you do get a lot of returners last year, and these guys are just excited to have a chance to bounce back. It was so clear from even just the end of last season how eager this Utah team was to get back on the field and just make up for a season that was so far below their standard. I mean, a team that has won conference championships in the last 5 years and has just gone through tough quarterback play that's really held them back. And now they're ready to prove that, hey, we're ready to bounce back and be one of the best programs in college football this coming season. And I think that we're the Big 12 this season. I'll say that. Big 12 this season, too. And Utah is ready to go. They know what they're going to be playing in Nico. Coach Witt talked about him being a big, strong, athletic QB, a playmaker who's dual threat, a tough runner, and said he honestly, like, in a lot of ways, he has similarities to even a guy like Cam Newton he mentioned, which I thought was a lot. I don't know if Nico's that good of a runner, but I get what he's saying. And he is going to make a sophomore leap. It's good that Utah is already accounting for that he is going to make that sophomore step up, because I do think that's something that's going to be, Nico's just going to continue to grow and get better this coming season too. He also talked about that, hey, this offense is going to continue to grow, and it's not going to be, it's this Utah offense is more than likely not going to be the best version of itself in week one. It takes time. It's a process. It's a season. There's still new pieces coming together and have to build the chemistry. I mean, even a guy like Tobias Merriweather, right? Who Utah's wide receiver transfer from Cal Wake Forest. And Witt did say Tobias is impressing. He runs really well, plays contested balls well. And, but he's a guy that needs to show he can do it on game day too, right? And this is a year for Utah as well, too, that he's an attention getter. Guys like Merriweather are, but how are they going to actually perform? When he steps on the field, he stands out, but can he actually make those plays step up and makes it happen too? One thing Kyle also talked about that was very interesting, that he wants to see preseason games in college football, which I think would be a great idea to allow the starters kind of get a couple reps, maybe in this new era of college football, as they talk about playing this many conference teams. And what does that mean? Maybe in one of those games is how you would play a group of 5 FCS team, but at the same time, like, then maybe you're still, some of your reserves and backups are getting beat up in preseason games. How does that all work? But I'd be down for college football preseason games. I like the idea that Kyle Whittingham brought up there too. He was asked about UCLA's defensive line, said they were good up front too. They got a couple guys he likes, but he continued to reiterate, on paper, this is the best offensive line he's had while he's been at Utah, which is still just such crazy high praise that I can't believe Kyle Whittingham is willing to give out like that. He mentioned later on how he feels like, if you ask him, like, he's got a little softer and things of that nature. And in some ways, like, it's not a bad thing, but I'm just saying, I don't know if Kyle Whittingham 10 years ago was even bringing up the fact that this could be their best offensive line on paper, even 3 years ago. Is that a Kyle Whittingham quote? I don't know. And he did say the starting point for the whole offense will be the offensive line. And I totally agree. I'm obviously someone who's very high on the Utah Utes bounce back this season. Reason for that in large part being they have one of the best offensive lines in college football. When you look at the tackle combination and the interior offensive line, and just every play starts with the offensive line. They got to open the holes. They got to provide the protection so that we can all watch the ball move to a place and with a player that makes us ooh and ah and get excited. Like, that all starts with the offensive line. It's a less glamorous position, but it's the most essential. And this Utah team has amazing offensive line play. And Kyle Whittingham's high on them. He's also just obviously confident and feeling good about the position this team is at. He dropped a lot of more interesting thoughts in his week 1 media availability press conference, and we're going to continue to discuss them in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. August 26th is closing in, and it's officially FanDuel Futures Day. That's right, it is today. August 26th has arrived, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for the bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just over 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on the NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. For me tomorrow, I'm looking at the Minnesota Vikings. I think they're winning the NFC North, and I think they got a good shot to win the Super Bowl. I can't go all the way there with a rookie QB, but I am taking them to win the division. Whatever bet you're feeling, make sure you head over to FanDuel today. You can visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because FanDuel Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, you can play your game today. Also have something exciting going on the Locked On Podcast Network, where we want to hear from you guys, the listeners. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast, hopefully this one, even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Continuing to talk about Kyle Whittingham's press conference thoughts. Always great to hear from Coach Whittingham, too. He said he believes this team, he knows that teams are going to come in and do everything they can to stop the run when coming against Utah. But this is a Utah team he feels like is still built to have a balanced offense and attack because you have a guy like Devin Dampier who is dynamic. Also, speaking of Devin Dampier's dynamic abilities, Kyle Whittingham believes Devin Dampier will be 50-50 on designed runs, and then also other times he runs just being him getting out of jams because he's elusive. He's an incredible scrambler. It's part of the reason last year he averaged 7.5 yards per carry. He's incredibly tough to bring down, was only sacked 5 times a season ago. Dampier is electric, and I do think he is going to make this Utah offense dual threat with his arm and legs too. And Utah wants to be that balanced offense. Kyle Whittingham continues to reiterate the importance of being a balanced offense too, and it is. Last year, teams would load the box on Utah, and it just wouldn't go well from there. And that's where Utah, teams are going to load the box, but Utah's the offensive line to be able to get through them. They have the players to make guys miss, but I think they have enough receiver talent to be able to force teams as well to respect their passing game. Because if the teams don't respect their passing game, then it's not going to go well for Utah overall on this one too. Also, Kyle was asked about, hey, do you feel good about the decision to come back? And he said there was no second thoughts about it. You can tell he's refreshed, rejuvenated, and just really happy to be back here too. That's where he talked about, how he's become just a better listener overall, more patient, a little more mellow as well too. And I think you can see that as well with this Utah team, that he's been able to adjust and adapt to the times of college football where a lot of other coaches just simply haven't been, because a lot of those guys, how they look at it is it's like, it's always worked for me this way and I'm sticking to it. And Kyle Whittingham hasn't looked at it like that. Kyle Whittingham has adapted and embraced elements of the transfer portal. He's talked about and even said in his press conference, it's out of control right now. I thought he actually made a very interesting comment too, when he said that, the current transfer portal model is not sustainable and just the current state of college football is not sustainable. I don't know if it's not sustainable. I'll say I don't like it. I'll go that far too, but college football is still college football. I think it was Josh Pate said Saturdays still feel like Saturdays. And as long as that's there, the sport's going to be okay. And that's true. Like college football Saturdays still feel like Saturdays. Is it a bummer that your players don't stick around as much anymore? Like just in the new era, right? We have a Keanu Tanavasa who goes to BYU, a Cameron Calhoun who goes to Alabama. That obviously hurts. It sucks. But at the end of the day, I'm still really excited to have Utah football back. But I want them to get the transfer portal era, all of this coming up, guys being lured in the transfer portal, all the things of that nature, I think do need to be fixed and cleaned up about this sport overall. But I don't feel like college football, as I mentioned, is in a bad place by any stretch of the imagination overall, too, in terms of the play on the field. Off the field issues, play on the field, it's fine. It's going to be okay, too, overall, too. So this Utah team trying to be more dynamic, as we mentioned, too. And, one thing Kyle was also asked about is, hey, it's been great having Devin Dampier because he's a good test for our defense as they prepare for Nico. He talked about Nico's dual threat abilities. Obviously, they don't get more dual threat when it comes to quarterbacks than Devin Dampier. So he talked about it being really good that this team has been able to go against Devin Dampier in practice and help get them ready for Nico a little bit too. Also, one thing to note is Utah did not release a depth chart today. Unfortunate, but not surprising. Kyle said they probably wouldn't do it with the injury report and everything. I'll be interested to see who pops up on the injury report later in the week. We got our first ever injury report last week, Iowa State and Kansas State. That was surprising. So that's just something we'll keep an eye out on. I think we'll get that on Thursday, maybe Friday, but hopefully Thursday. And we'll be able to react live and see, hey, who got banged up during fall camp. We haven't really heard about anyone missing any time. And, hopefully Utah has adjusted and continued to make their fall camp a little lighter on contact. You still want to be good at tackling, obviously, but you don't want to get your guys beat up and wore down. So then they're missing time and missing games once the season starts. So hopefully not much to report when the injury report comes out for Utah, but that obviously Utah's had some bad injury luck on the season. So if they could have made it out of camp with no one hurt, it's a miracle, not just because it's Utah, but it's also just the game of college football and how physical it is. But would have loved to have seen a depth chart. I did an episode last week talking about where I think everyone stands and sits on the depth chart, but let me know in the comments below what some of your expectations about the depth charts coming up for this coming season too. One thing he was asked about too, I thought it was interesting, is he was asked, hey, how important is chemistry in the secondary? And he said it's massive because any mistake can be a touchdown. He mentioned any mistake your front seven makes is bad. But at the same time, it's a lot different when, hey, we only gave up 15 yards versus, hey, we were in the wrong coverage. We gave up a 70-yard touchdown. That being the biggest thing. Coverage mistakes often lead to touchdowns because when the front seven makes a mistake, it's the last line of the defense. The safeties, the cornerbacks that can still bring a running back down even after he's had a strong game. But when the secondary is a miscommunication, thankfully something Utah does a good job of avoiding, guys are wide open and just get into the end zone, and then it's you give up the one thing. You're doing everything in your power to prevent a touchdown, and that's where it gets bad and out of control from there too. So as a Utah team that has a strong secondary, that's where it's nice to have those returning. The whole point about being asked about the secondary, the chemistry, is you have Elijah Davis, you have Smith Snowden back. They have great chemistry, good relationship. You look at the same thing you'd say about Teo Johnson and Rabbit Evans. I feel that way too. So you have 4 of the 5 DBs that are going to be on the field most of the time, in my opinion, all played together last year. Even Evans got some experience, obviously not as much as Johnson, Snowden, and Davis. But then Blake Cotton slides in as a veteran who he's played a lot of football at UC Davis, had a lot of success there. He's won the coaches over with his play, and I expect him to win us fans over with his play as well too. So yeah, Kyle Whittingham, always great to hear from him too. He also did say he'd prefer to play a lesser opponent in that first week and kind of learn a little bit more about his team too, but said, hey, it's never a bad thing to start with a high-level opponent because it makes you like a little bit sharper. And obviously, Kyle didn't say this, but like, let's just call it what it is, right? Like if Utah was playing Cal Poly in their first game of the season, they're going to be ready to go, but it's going to be in the back of their mind. Like it's just human nature. How can it not be? We're going to beat these guys, and if we do our job, I'm not going to play in the third even quarter like Utah did against Southern Utah last year. Like all the stars were up at halftime. Versus UCLA, it is go time. Like I've said before, I think Utah's got a really good chance to make a statement against UCLA. I think it's got a chance to be a big win for the Utes, but that doesn't mean you can't take this team lightly at all. No, with what Nico did, being a starting quarterback on a college football playoff team still, so UCLA, the offensive coordinator, as we mentioned too, coming over from Indiana, as a guy who helped that team get to the playoff, you cannot take this Bruins team lightly, and Utah's not doing that. So I agree, in a perfect world, like I would, in a way, if I was a coach, I'd probably want to play a cupcake as well early, but I like this more. I mean, this is way more fun to talk about. I had a blast talking about when Utah was going to play Florida a couple of years ago. I understand from a long-term standpoint the value, as I just said, of playing an FCS opponent and just a team that you can do some different things against, but mostly give your guys just like a lighter game load because they're going to probably just play in the first half and that's it. But these are way more fun. I mean, these are the games like when you have potential to lose and all of that. This is what college football is all about, playing big opponents like this. 11 p.m. Eastern time, Utah, UCLA, the best game after Clemson, LSU, at least at night. Obviously, the Ohio State, Texas game is going to be amazing during the game, during the day. I just think it's really exciting that Utah is a marquee matchup. I wish it was at a better time slot, but I'm glad Utah is ready to roll and ready to go too. But how is Utah going to fare in this game? How are they going to fare in all their games? ESPN has their record, has their predictions, like who should be favored and what percentage chance they give Utah to win in each of their games. I'm going to be reacting to that percentage in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Rujit. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rujit Ready. Rujit Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow, too. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rujit's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in 15 minutes, effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rujit might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. I love that it's completely online. Rujit connects you with board-certified doctors too, and ships your treatment discreetly to your front door. You can head to Rujit.com/LockedOnCollege, all caps, no spaces. Use Locked On College to get 15% off today. It's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege. Use the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off your order today. The Utah Utes first game is this Saturday, which means the 2025 season is almost here. So how does ESPN think Utah is going to do in each of their games? So what I'm going to do for this final segment is I'm going to go game by game looking at what ESPN projects Utah's chance at to win each matchup. Let's look at the first one. Right now, Utah is not favored against UCLA in that first week. UCLA, a 52% favorite there. Utah, just 47%. Obviously, I disagree with that. I feel like Utah, we talked about it before, just a lot of the continuity pieces that Utah is back, new quarterback, new offensive coordinator working together for UCLA, defense that was good, but has a ton to replace from last season too, and offensive line questions. I feel like Utah should be favored. I'd lean Utah 60-40 in this one, but I can understand they're always going to side with the road games a little bit more. Let's see what the Cal Poly one is that ESPN's thinking. 99% in favor of Utah, 1% Cal Poly. I think that's totally fair. How about the game up in Laramie? Utah traveling to take out Wyoming in week 3. 84% Utah, 15% Wyoming. To me, that's a little high for a Wyoming team who missed a bowl game last year and did not bring in the transfer player portals the level that a Utah team that missed a bowl game did. So I would go 90-10 there, but I understand it's Laramie. It's a game against at Wyoming. Anything can happen. How are they feeling about Utah against Texas Tech? A reminder right now, too, Red Raiders are ranked in that one at 23. If Utah takes care of business week 1 and looks good weeks 2 and 3, I think that's a top 25 matchup, which I would love to have that be the case. Now bolster not just Utah, but the Big 12 as well, if they could get that matchup there. Utah currently favored. I think this is where you see Utah getting the home team bump, right? They're 52% favored, over 47% for Texas Tech. And I think this makes a lot of sense when you look at now the injury the Tech has at their key running back. There's some transfer portal pieces along the offensive line that got to come together. They have some talented pass catchers, no doubt. But this Utah team at home, let's not forget, when Utah has had the starting quarterback that they intend to be their starting quarterback at the beginning of the year, this is a team that has not lost a home game since 2017. Yes, home games were rough last year at times, but Utah was in every single one of them with bad quarterback play. I don't think they're getting bad quarterback play this year. And obviously ESPN doesn't, since they have them beating their 23rd projected team. Then you get a very even one. Utah going up to West Virginia. Obviously, this is a little bit of a road trip out to Morgantown. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere there. I've just also said before, in West Virginia, barely favored, 50.9% to 49.1 for Utah. I just think Utah's the better team here. And I know it's tough to go on the road and win in college football, but I'm just not high on West Virginia. I think it's too many new pieces. I trust Rich Rod. I think he does a good job, but I don't think they're ready for this Utah team. I think the offensive line overwhelms a rebuilding Mountaineer program. I think this is the Utah team where Devin Dampier will be playing some of his best ball by then. And I think Utah gets a win over the Mountaineers there too. After that, Utah will get to take on Arizona State. Not before a little bit of a bye, though, which is obviously very welcome. Right now, ESPN feeling the Sun Devils. I have no issue with this. 58% win percentage for ASU, only 41% for Utah right now. And how can I be mad about that? ASU won the title last year, beat Utah last year too. But this Utah team, as we said, very hard to win at home. For me personally, I think this should be closer to, this one is more 50-50 to me, because you got to respect Sam Levitt coming back, Kenny Dillingham. But it's, again, Utah at home, man. I don't love picking against Utah at home, and I think they got a good chance. I've talked about this is right now a game I have them projected to lose. ASU is the 11th ranked team, but I don't think I would have the favorites be as drastic as that. All right, we've reached the craziest one here. Utah at BYU matchup predictor. Yes, this is October 18th, so a long way away from now. They have BYU as a 70% favorite and Utah as a 30% chance to win this game. What? Like, how? How does a team who their starting quarterback's a true freshman is just going to for sure beat a Utah team that has a lot more veterans and is just better at some of the most important positions in football? Offensive line, clearly in Utah's favor. Quarterback, clearly in Utah's favor too, right? Both teams have some questions along the defensive line. I get it, but I feel like Utah, I understand if BYU, if you want to give BYU a slight favor, I get it. But the fact that Utah only has 30% and BYU has 70% to me is absolutely wild when you think about a true freshman quarterback for the Cougars and a quarterback that I just don't simply think is going to be that level of the upper echelon among the best QBs in the Big 12. I just don't know how good Bear's going to be this year. I don't think he's going to be great, but Bear, if you prove me wrong, good for you. I think this is crazy to have Utah as that drastic of an underdog there. Then we got Utah versus Colorado in this one. Utah 56%, Buffs 43%. To me, Caden Salters, Colorado, rebuilding without the presence of, actually Colorado's going to beat BYU, by the way, in their game earlier in the season, but no presence of Shador, no presence of Travis Hunter. To me, Utah This should be 60. I actually might go 70-30 here. I feel good about this Utah team, and the Buffs have a lot of answers with how much they relied so heavily on those two guys. Then Cincinnati comes to town, take on Utah. This is where we see Utah become a 65% favor to 34% for Cincinnati. I'd probably go 70-30 here as well. Maybe even 80-20, depending on how the Bearcats look. I think it could be a long year for Scott Satterfield, but I'm not mad about this one, 65-35. Then you get a tough one for Utah. You go out to Waco right now. They're feeling Baylor, 68% favored for Baylor, 31 for Utah. I think this should be more 60-40 in favor of the Bears, the home team. I have Baylor beating Utah in my season projections. I'd love to pick this team to go 12-0. It's hard to do that with how they were last year, and also there's really good teams in the Big 12. Let's not forget that too. There's a Utah team that I could absolutely see be an 8-4, and I do think there's a world that they are a 10, maybe even a 12-win team. It's just hard for me to sit here and say with confidence that that's going to happen. But I get Waco being favored, Baylor being a favorite in Waco here. I think they're going to get Auburn on Friday too, so that probably only bolsters it. Baylor's got a good chance to be ranked. Love what Sawyer Robertson brings. And, of course, for Utah, they get the bye after the Cincinnati game, so that'll be nice resting up for the Bears. Then Utah takes on Kansas State. This one surprised me. Kansas State's 57% favored, only 42% favored in turn for Utah. I just disagree with that. I don't see that being the case in this game at all. Like, why is Kansas State, who I did think showed some nice things, but that large of a favorite against the Utah Utes at home? I don't. If Devin Dampier and everyone's healthy, I don't see it. So I think Utah, this should be like 55-45 for me. I like Kansas State, Avery Johnson, Chris Kleiman. I know what they can bring, but to me, that's another one that's just surprising. So then you get Kansas versus Utah Utes, final home game of the year, November 28th, of course. Utah taking on the Jayhawks, 72% favored Kansas. That's another, like, what are we doing? Why? I like Kansas. I think they could be good, but why is this game not over like 50% for Utah? It's a Utah team. Like, they're not bad 2 years in a row, the physical culture in place. Like, we just feel this good about Kansas. A Kansas team that also wasn't great last year is just that surely going to beat up on Utah. I'm not feeling that at all. So that's another one I don't like. So for the most part, I think ESPN, on a couple of these, I think ESPN's lost their damn mind. Like, I think some of them are absolutely wild, but for the most part, I think I get what they're trying to do. And yeah, it's just interesting to see what ESPN models predict. You know, AI always has their thoughts too. If you ask Gronk or whatever, what on X is called, like what they think is going to happen to Utah. So always interesting to see what ESPN's feeling is going to happen. And obviously my feeling is it's going to be a great season for the Utah Utes. Kyle Whittingham hopes it is as well. Spoke about that earlier in his press conference today. Drop your thoughts in the comments on his press conference. Which player comments did you find interesting? We're going to hit on a lot of those on tomorrow's show. Thank you again for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. And make sure, if you're in the market for a second listen, you check out Locked On College Football or any of our great Locked On Big 12 shows or Locked On shows in general. That's going to do it for today's edition. Look forward to be back with you tomorrow as we continue to get you prepped for all things Utah versus UCLA in Pasadena.